Okay, so we are discussing about organization. In previous class, we discussed about some of the aspects related to organization. Okay, so departmentalization, uh, forming an organization. Okay, departmentalization means so it is the horizontal differentiation of tasks or activities into discrete segments is called departmentalization. If you consider Malnad College of Engineering, okay, so there are 9 different branches, 9 different departments. If you look at the structure, that is the horizontal structure. Okay, why it is known as horizontal differentiation is so here if you consider MC okay as one organization. Okay, next how departmentalization will be done is so this MC will be divided into different departments like this. Okay, all these different departments so have a similar function or similar responsibility. Okay, so that's why it is a horizontal differentiation. Okay, so like this. So here it may be mechanical, civil, industrial production, okay, instrumentation. Like that, there are different departments. If you consider a manufacturing organization, it may be production department, then human resource department, then marketing department, then finance department. Okay, like that every organization will have departments. Okay, so the meaning or the definition of departmentalization is the horizontal differentiation, like this horizontal differentiation of tasks or activities into discrete segments. That means separate entities. Discrete segments is called departmentalization. Okay, next departmentalization is one important step of building an organization. In previous class, we discussed about steps in establishing an organization. In that, departmentalization is also one of the steps. The aim is to take advantage of the division of labor and specialization up to a certain limit. We have already discussed about principles of management and principles of organization. Okay, division of labor we have discussed. Um, so based on the skill set or based on the qualification of a person, work will be assigned. Okay, so that means in a manufacturing company, people who have knowledge of production or engineering, okay, they will be recruited to work in production department. Similarly, who have MBA graduation, so they are hired to work in finance or HR department. Okay, so that is the division of labor and specialization. Next, types of departmentalization. Okay, there are you can classify departmentalization in many ways. So this is one way based on process and based on purpose. Okay, if departmentalization is done considering process, then that is known as process departmentalization. It is again it may be based on business or organizational functions, or it may be based on technology. Okay, if you consider how departmentalization will be done manufacturing company. So that means production department, HR department, finance department, and marketing department. It is based on which criteria, whether it is based on business or organization functions or technology. Okay, it is based on functions. So the function of production department is to ensure production of quality products or production of a particular number of products in a stipulated time. Okay, so the function of finance department is to arrange for money or investment required to run the company. Okay. Next, if departmentalization also can be done with the help of based on technology. Okay. If you consider the labs available in our college. Okay. Which are the different labs you can see in mechanical department? Have a lab there. Okay, which are the different labs you can see in mechanical department? ಯಾವ ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ ನೋಡಿಲ್ವಾ?
Sir, machine shop.
Machine shop. Then
material testing lab.
Material testing lab. Then you have basic workshop, foundry and forging lab, e-transfer lab, engines lab, hydraulics and pneumatics lab. Okay. If you consider again departmentalization in the mechanical department itself. Okay. How it is done, whether it is based on function or it is based on technology. Okay, so this is based on technology. That means the machines that you can see in machine shop or the machines you can see in engines lab. Okay, so they are different. In engines lab you can see different engines. In machine lab you can see different machines. Okay, so that is based on technology. Departmentalization based on technology. Similarly, in a manufacturing company, you may have different departments. Okay, like CNC department, like milling department, like turning department. Okay, if it is technology. Okay, so you may find different departments based on the type of machines used. Okay, that is another way of departmentalization. Next, purpose departmentalization. Okay, so some companies may consider departmentalization based on products. If you consider car manufacturing company, okay, so they may be manufacturing variety of cars. Okay, so it may be electric car. Okay, so electric car plant is one department. Okay, then a plant manufacturing diesel IC engine cars. Okay, that is another department. Or you may consider cost of the car. Okay, so the high cost cars may be one segment or one department. Okay, so low cost cars may be one segment. So like that, that is another way of departmentalization. Next, based on customers. Again, you may think customers who have very good spending power, that means who are rich and who can afford high cost products. Okay, so that may be one segment. And the customers who cannot afford high cost products, that means they want products at reasonable price. Okay, so based on that also you can departmentalization by considering customers. There's another possibility, departmentalization based on regions, territory or location. Okay, if you consider Indian Railways, okay, it is one example of departmentalization based on territory or location. You have Southern Railways. Okay, that means that is related to South India. Okay, like that, based on the location. So in railways also you have different divisions. Okay, similarly in some government departments also there are divisions based on the location. Okay, so that is departmentalization based on regions, territory or location. Next, committees. Okay, we are well aware of the term committee. Committee means, so some people will be grouped together. Okay, committees means some people are grouped together for a particular purpose. Okay, a committee is a group of people who have been formally assigned some task or some problem for their decision and or implementation. Okay, in our college also there are in MC also there are different committees. Okay, anti-ragging committee. Okay, so like that there are committees. In companies also they will form committee. Okay, for a particular reason. It may be to make a decision regarding whether to increase investment or elaborate the market. Okay, so committees will be formed. Similarly, even governments also will form committees. Okay, now if you look at the present situation, even to handle the current crisis of corona pandemic, central government is also having a committee. Even at state level there is a task force. Okay, that is a committee who will give suggestion to the government. Okay, committees are often set up where new kinds of work and or unfamiliar problems seem to involve decisions, responsibilities, and powers beyond the capability of any one man or department. Okay. Again, in order to make use of the expertise of people from different domain, committees will be formed. Okay, so at times they will give only suggestions. At times they have the authority to implement also. Okay, that we will discuss next. Okay. Next, there is an approach called a linking pin approach. Okay, so the linking pin approach is there are advantages with the structure of the committee. Okay, compared to hierarchy or different levels of management. Okay, so there are some advantages with committees. Okay, the advantage is there is more scope for discussion in case of committees. Okay, if you consider a committee, there will be a chairman and there are members in a committee. Okay, so one they will chairman will call a meeting and the committee members will discuss. So that means there is scope for discussion and there is scope for exchanging ideas. Okay, that is the advantage of committees. The linking pin structure, uh, you can have again different levels in a committee also. Okay, you can have the committee at the low level. Okay, so if you consider this, there are three separate committees. Okay, these three separate committees will discuss and they will come to some conclusion or some ideas. Okay, next again these three chairmen of these three committees. Okay, so again, they will form another committee. Okay, chairmen of committee at level 3, okay, will form another committee which includes only the chairman and top level management, a person from top level management. Then he will discuss with the chairman of these committees. Okay, then they will come to a conclusion. The conclusion will be conveyed to the top management. Okay, so by this person, by the chairman of committees at level 2. Okay, next again, chairmen of committees at level 2 will discuss with the boss. Okay, this is the linking pin arrangement where you can see at all different structures. Okay, there is scope for discussion among the members of the committee. Okay, this is called as linking pin approach. Okay. In committees, there are two types: advisory committees and executive committees. Advisory committees have only a recommendatory role and cannot enforce implementation of their advice or recommendation. Okay, they will give only recommendation or advice, but they don't have any authority to implement their advices. Okay, which are the examples for advisory committees? Which are the examples? Okay, most of the times governments will form committees. Okay, it may be again COVID task force of Karnataka government. Okay, in that there are doctors. Okay, they will give suggestion to the government. Again, government may accept their suggestion or it may reject their suggestion. Okay, that is the advisory committee. Only thing they can do is they can give advices to the government, but they don't have any right or any authority to implement their recommendations. Okay, only thing is they can give advice. So there are other types of committees. Executive committees not only take decisions but also enforce decisions and thus perform a double role of a decision and ordering execution. The example is the board of directors of a company is an example of an executive committee. Okay, if you consider board of directors of a company, that is nothing but the top management. Okay, so they discuss and they will come to a conclusion, and again they are going to implement that decision. Okay, so here they are going to make a decision and they are going to look how it will be implemented. Okay, that is the executive committees. Another example for executive committee is GST Council. Okay, where finance ministers from different states and bureaucrats, okay, all will discuss uh, 3 or 4 times in a year, and they will look at the tax rates for various products and grievances from industry and other stakeholders. Okay, that is the executive committee. So the difference between advisory committee and executive committee is advisory committee, so the members can only give suggestion, or the committee can give advice to the company or to the government. Okay, executive committees, so here along with making decisions, so they have the authority to implement those decisions also. Okay. Next, committees may also be classified as standing committees and ad hoc task forces. So standing committee means these are permanent committees. Ad hoc task forces means, so they are for a particular purpose. When that particular purpose is served, these committees or these task forces will be dissolved. Okay, that is the difference based on the nature or whether permanent or temporary. So we have another classification of committees. Okay, standing or permanent committees are formed to deal with recurrent, that means which occur repetitively. Okay, so recurrent means which will occur very often. Okay, recurrent organizational problems. Example, finance committee in a company. Again, this will make a decision regarding economic and financial feasibility. Okay, and loan approval committee in a bank, admission committee in a college. Okay, these are the permanent committees. So when until there is a college, okay, there will be a admission committee. Okay, how admission process should be done. Okay, how students can be admitted, whether it is based on percentage, based on rank. Okay. Next, ad hoc task forces have a short duration. They are dissolved after the task is over or the problem is solved. The members are chosen for their skills and experience. Again, you can consider the example of COVID task force of Karnataka. Okay, so again, if the problem of the corona pandemic is resolved, then obviously this committee also will be dissolved. Okay, so that is the ad hoc task force. Again, the members of this committee are doctors or epidemiologists, okay, who have expertise in the field. Next, advantages of committees. Okay, committees consist of all departmental heads as members. People get an opportunity to better understand each other's problems and to move towards organizational goals. As we discussed earlier, in committee there is scope for discussion among the members. Okay, so that's why when there is discussion, when people interact and exchange their ideas, okay, they can understand others' problem properly. Okay, a department head of production department can understand the problems of marketing people. Okay, that is possible in case of committees, because the structure of the committee will allow members to discuss in the meetings. Okay, committees provide a forum for the pooling of knowledge and experience of many persons of different skills, ages and backgrounds. Okay, so consider an example. Okay, if you have one apple, okay, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಒಂದು ಆಪಲ್ ಇದೆ, and your friend is also having one apple. Okay, so you will exchange. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇರೋ ಆಪಲ್ ನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫ್ರೆಂಡಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಹತ್ರ ಇರೋ ಆಪಲ್ ನ you will receive. So at the end ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಪಲ್ ಉಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಹತ್ರ ಎಷ್ಟು ಉಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ? Okay, you have one apple, your friend is also having one apple, so you will exchange. ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇರೋದು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಇರೋದು ನಿಮಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇವಾಗ ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಪಲ್ ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ? ಪ್ರಜ್ವಲ್, ಮೋಹನ್, ರೋಹನ್.
Yes, sir. Sir,
ಮೋಹನ್, ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಎಷ್ಟು ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ? If you have one apple and your friend is also having one apple, okay, you both will exchange. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇರೋದು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ, ಅವ್ರ ಹತ್ರ ಎಷ್ಟು ಆಪಲ್ ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ?
Sir, same, nothing changes, sir. Nothing changed, sir. Same.
Nothing change. Same ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದೇ.
Sir, ಒಂದೇ.
Okay. So next, consider an idea. Okay, you have one idea and your friend is also having one idea, and now you will exchange your idea with your friend and your friend will exchange his idea with you. Now how many ideas you have with you? Two ideas. Okay, so now you realize the knowledge or importance of sharing ideas and sharing, discussing with the members of the team. Okay, so this example will make us realize, okay, the importance of sharing idea or sharing knowledge. Okay, this illustration is suggested by Bernard Shaw and it is in the textbook itself. Okay, so by this you can understand the relevance or the importance of sharing ideas. If you share ideas with your friend, and again if your friend is ready to share his idea with you, you will be having many ideas. Okay, so that is the advantage. This committee structure is able to achieve this advantage of sharing ideas. Okay, next, committees provide an opportunity to many persons to participate in the decision making process. Committees are excellent means of transmitting information and ideas both upward and downward. The reason is, in committee, members of the committee are free to discuss with the chairman of the committee. Okay, they can give suggestions to the chairman, and again chairman can convey a few aspects related to a problem or related to a problem they are discussing. Okay, so there is two-way communication in case of committees. Okay, by exposing members to different viewpoints, committees contribute indirectly to their training and development. Okay, again similar to sharing ideas. Okay, if you are member of a committee, when you are listening to others, okay, you may be able to realize few more aspects related to a problem. You may get additional ideas. Committees are impersonal in action, and hence their decisions are generally unbiased and are based on facts. There is no fear of a single individual taking a biased decision. Okay, whenever there is a committee, if a committee gives suggestion, no one will say this suggestion is given by this person. No one will take any names. Okay, so it is a group, a team effort. Okay, and people will say, our government will say, this committee gave us this suggestion, we are implementing or we are not implementing. Okay, in India also there are many committees. Okay, they have studied about many problems like poverty, like unemployment. Okay, like even economic condition of the nation. Okay, so there are many, even there are some committees which conduct socio-economic study based on caste, religion. Okay, so some of the committees like there is a committee called Sachar committee. Okay, it gave a report, and in Karnataka there is a committee called Sadashiva committee. Okay, they gave uh, socio-economic study reports. Okay. Next, weaknesses. There are in every aspect there are advantages and there are disadvantages. Okay, in committees also there are disadvantages or demerits or weaknesses. It takes longer to get action from a committee than from an individual manager. Okay, whenever there are 4 people, again it allows discussion, but the problem is if there are 4 members in a committee, 4 members may not agree to come to a conclusion. Okay, in a committee or in a team, you can come to a conclusion when members of the committee are able to agree with one another. Okay, if they disagree, then the problem is it may take a lot of time to make a decision. Okay, I have to come to a conclusion. That is the problem with committees. In case a wrong decision is taken by a committee, no member can be individually held responsible. This encourages irresponsibility among the members. As we discussed earlier, people or a government or company will say, okay, this committee gave this report. Okay, so in most of the companies there will be a quality assurance committee. Okay, which look after the ensure quality of the product or quality of the service of the company. Okay, they will give suggestions. Again, management will say this committee has given this suggestion. Here, there will be no name calling. At the same time, this will be having another demerit. Okay, no one will take responsibility. It is the responsibility of entire committee. So that's why people may not take it seriously. Okay, so Gumpal Govinda anta anbodu annatra. So there might be an attitude. Okay, that is another demerit. A huge amount is spent in convening meetings and giving allowances to the members. Hence, committees are an expensive form of administration. Okay, if you consider central government or state government, okay, in state government also there are many committees which involve MLAs and MLC. Okay, at center also there are many committees which where members of parliament are the members of the committee. Okay, so the problem with this is if there is a meeting for a committee, okay, consider that meeting should be held in parliament and members are MPs from various states of the country. Then again they have to go to Delhi and again TA, DA, everything should be given by the government. So that means it is a very expensive overall the operation of the committees. Okay, so it's very expensive. That is another demerit. Okay, decisions are generally arrived at on the basis of some compromise among the members. Hence, they are not the best decisions. As we discussed, when there are 4 people, 4 may not agree with one another. Okay, so if the committee has to come to conclusion, some may have to compromise, even though they have disagreement. Okay, finally they must be quiet. Okay, because somehow the committee has to come to a final conclusion. Next, as committees consist of large number of persons, it is difficult to maintain secrecy regarding the decisions taken at the committee level. This is another problem. Okay, some members of the committee may leak the information, okay, before it is officially announced. Okay, this has happened for many reports of the committees given to the government. Okay, officially these reports are not announced, but because of from the members of the committee, so it has leaked unofficially. Okay, this is a problem with committee structure. Next, suggestions for making committees effective. So one suggestion is the number of members on a committee should not be very large. Okay, if the number of members in a committee are less, then the expense is also less. And again, it is easy to come to a conclusion. Okay, if there are 4 in a committee, it is easy to come to conclusion compared to 8 in a committee. Okay, a committee's authority should be carefully spelled out and its activities are correctly chosen and closely defined. Then there will be no confusion if it is defined properly. The members of a committee should enjoy equal formal status so that they interact with each other freely. Okay, again, in the members of the committee also, if there is a differentiation, there are levels, there is a hierarchy. Okay, then that results in improper communication. Okay, always people at top management will assume more power. Okay, and they will dominate the discussion. That is the problem. That's why in a committee, if every member should have equal status, okay, so that they can freely discuss with each other. The members should give precedence to organizational interests over departmental interests and should be prepared in advance on issues to be discussed in the meeting. Okay, then there will be no waste of time. And again, since in a company, okay, so if there is a quality assurance committee, then it involves people from purchase department, people from production department, people from marketing department. Again, when they are discussing in the meeting of the committee, and they should consider the interest of the organization rather than considering interest of their particular department. Next, information should be shared prior to the meeting so that the focus of the meeting can be on problem solving. Okay, if the purpose of the meeting is conveyed earlier, then immediately they can start discussing on the problem itself. Okay, that is, the chairman of the committee should plan and conduct the meeting with firmness and fairness. That means the chairman should allow members to discuss. He should not interfere and it should not take command. Okay, so that is the meaning. So we should allow members of the committee to discuss. He must be ready to take their suggestions. The work of the committee should be periodically reviewed to determine if it is working effectively in terms of the purpose for which it was established and whether that purpose is still valid. Okay, if the purpose is not valid, then the committee should be dissolved. Next topic, authority. Okay, we have already discussed about authority earlier. Okay, what do you mean by authority? In principles of management and principles of organization, we discussed about authority. Okay, what do you mean by authority? Naveen? Naveen MS? Naveen Kumar? Panchakshari Hiremat? What do you mean by authority? Madhusudan?
ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ.
Okay. Prithvi Nayak? It seems like most of you have logged in and muted yourself and you are busy with some other work.
So illa sir.
Okay, so when I call your name, at least you should say whether you know or not. You have to respond. Okay, right.
Sir, ಹೇಳಿ
What do you mean by authority?
ಸರ್ ಅಥಾರಿಟಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸರ್ ದ ಪವರ್ ಗಿವನ್ ಟು ಒನ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಟು ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ to maintain or make any decision according to the level.
Oh, okay. So authority means it is the legal power. That means it is in written format. Okay, so power will be. So if you don't have authority, so you cannot make decision. Okay, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ authority ಇದ್ರೆ, or if you have that legal power, okay, or if you have a legal document to show to your subordinates that I have the power to make you work, I have the power to take action against you if you don't work, okay, then only it is possible for you to effectively manage your subordinate. Okay, so authority, it is the legitimate right of a superior to command and compel his subordinates to perform a certain act. Okay, if superior or manager doesn't have authority, then subordinates will not obey. Okay, if consider faculty, if faculty don't have authority to mark absent if you don't attend the class, then this is the consequences. Okay, so like that there must be power with the manager, then only he can manage his subordinates effectively. It can be delegated to a subordinate by his superior. Okay, if at times if I have a power, okay, if I have authority, I can give that authority to my subordinate. Okay, so ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ so ಇಂಥ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ I can delegate my authority, I can hand over my authority to my subordinate. It is mostly well defined and finite. Okay, that means what can be done and what cannot be done is well defined. Okay, so what is legal and what is illegal, okay, what right a manager is having and what rights he doesn't have, okay, everything will be defined in the organization structure. It is what exists in the eye of law. Next, responsibility. Okay, authority is the right of a superior to issue commands. Responsibility is the obligation of a subordinate to obey those commands. Okay, consider college and class. Okay, so here faculty are the managers and students are the subordinates. Or to award marks for whatever you write or whatever activities you do. Okay, next, again there are responsibilities with students, that means subordinates. Okay, what are the responsibilities of students? They have to attend class, they have to get attendance more than 85%, they have to score marks, they have to learn concepts, they have to acquire knowledge, so that they can be hired by companies. They will the employability of the students will be increased or will be enhanced. Okay, so even you have responsibility. Okay, so attending classes is your responsibility, studying properly, understanding concepts is your responsibility. So that is the meaning. Authority is the right of a superior to issue commands. Responsibility is the obligation, that means compulsorily they have to do, obligation of a subordinate to obey those commands. Thus, when a superior assigns some work to a subordinate, it becomes his responsibility to perform it. Okay, if you are working in a company under someone, then you are given salary, you are hired by the company, okay, to do those tasks. If you don't do, okay, company will consider that you are not capable, then it will relieve you. Okay, so that's why if you have agreed to work in a company, then you have to obey the orders from your boss or from the top management or from your superior. Similarly in the college, okay, so you have admitted to the college, you paid fees, you agreed that you are ready to attend classes. Okay, you agreed that you will study and you will write exam, you will score and you will get passed. Okay, again, if you don't attend the class, that means uh, you are irresponsible. That means you are not taking the responsibility. Okay, then responsibility cannot be delegated or transferred. Okay, only authority can be transferred. If I have some powers, I can transfer those powers. Okay, if I am not able to engage class, okay, for example, I can say I can contact other faculty and I can request him. Okay, you attend, you engage class instead of me. Okay, that is the delegation of authority. Then your responsibility doesn't change. That means instead of you attending class, you cannot say, okay, so none bottle you attend again, innobರಿಗೆ. You cannot do that. Similarly, if a work is assigned in a company, you have to do that work. You cannot make alternative arrangements. Okay, that is the difference between authority and responsibility. Authority can be transferred, whereas responsibility cannot be transferred officially, legally. Okay. Next, responsibility is divided into two parts at the time of delegation. Operating responsibility. The subordinate assumes only the operating responsibility for the task. Ultimate responsibility. The superior retains ultimate responsibility for getting the job done. Okay, so we discussed authority can be delegated. Okay, so again, if I delegate authority, then also ultimately I am responsible. Okay, if I ask someone to engage class instead of myself, if he doesn't engage classes, again who is responsible? I am responsible. Okay, if the company give a target, okay, so this week you have to complete 500 units of the work. That means at the end of this week there must be 500 finished components. Okay, so if I am on leave, what I will do, I may give some authority to my subordinate. Okay, he will look after the production process. At the end of the week, okay, if it is not possible to meet the target, that means target of 500 units of a component, then top management will ask, not my subordinate. Okay, will ask you, not your subordinate. Okay, that is the meaning. So if authority is given to you, and even though if you delegate that authority, okay, ultimate responsibility will be on your shoulder only. Okay, that is the meaning. If the subordinate fails to perform the job that is temporarily given, that is operating responsibility, the superior is held responsible for this failure. That is the ultimate responsibility. Okay, authority should equal responsibility. The subordinate must have been delegated enough authority to undertake all the duties which have been assigned to him and for which he has accepted responsibility. Okay, if you give only responsibility, it is not possible to accomplish that. Okay, along with responsibility, you have to delegate the authority also, and that authority should be equal to responsibility. It should not be less and it should not be more. Both have consequences. Okay, subordinate manager cannot be expected to accept responsibility for activities for which he has no authority. That means if I don't have any legal power to perform a task, how can I complete it? Okay, so that's why I should have authority whenever I am taking a responsibility. The subordinate should not have more authority than responsibility or vice versa. If the authority is given more, then he will be having more power. That more power he may misuse. Okay, so that's why more authority should not be given. Okay, authority should be given by looking at the responsibility. Okay, inequality between the two produces undesirable results. That means if authority and responsibility are not equal, if more authority is given than required, then that will result in misuse. If less authority is given than required, that will result in incompletion of the work. Okay, if authority exceeds the responsibility, a misuse of authority can be observed. On the other hand, if responsibility exceeds authority, it may manager, superior may find himself in a very subordinate may find himself in a very frustrating situation, because okay, so manager is forcing that ನೀನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜರ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ he don't have the authority to do that work. Okay, if we do that also, that will be illegal. Okay, officially that is illegal. So then what will happen to subordinate? He will get frustration. He don't have right. He don't have legal right to perform a particular task. Then also his manager is forcing him to do that. Okay, by looking at the consequences, the subordinate may get frustrated. Okay, so that is the problem with imbalance between authority and responsibility. Next, centralization and decentralization. Okay, so this is the last topic which I'm going to discuss in today's class. Okay, already we discussed some aspects related to centralization and decentralization. Okay, consider the engineering colleges in Karnataka. Okay, some of the colleges like MCE are autonomous colleges. Okay, some of the colleges are not autonomous, so they are managed directly by the university, that is VTU. Okay, why VTU gave autonomy to some colleges, some engineering colleges? What is the reason? There are few autonomous colleges in Karnataka, and there are many colleges which are not autonomous, which are under VTU. Okay, why university gave autonomy to some engineering colleges? What is the reason? What advantages it can achieve by giving autonomy to some engineering colleges? Okay, why you chose to study in an autonomous college like MCE? ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ವಾ? Madhu, NM
will be more flexible, sir.
More flexible. Then?
Sir, it is not governed by some authority, like fully governed by authority like VTO. So they can take their own decisions, and exam are conducted by the autonomous college by itself, without any intervention of VTO. Only result.
Okay. What are the advantages for VTO by doing this?
Sir, it is a standard. The tests will be of certain standards, sir. Always in autonomous college, the standard of the exams will be dependent on the lecturers or on the college, sir. Okay. But in VTU, one standard paper for every VTU universities.
Okay. Okay, so this autonomy, giving autonomy to in Karnataka is also an example for decentralization. Okay, decentralization at the university level. Okay, again there are merits and demerits associated with centralization and decentralization. Centralization means all power will be kept at the top management. Okay, that means all power will be retained by this example by the university. Decentralization means it will give autonomy to some colleges. By delegating authority to some colleges, the advantages for VTU is, instead of managing 250 colleges, if it give autonomy to 50 colleges, then it has to manage only 200 colleges. Okay, managing 250 colleges and managing 200, which is easy. managing 250 colleges and managing 200, which is easy?
200.
200. Okay, so VTU is doing that by giving autonomy to, for example, by giving autonomy to 50 colleges. Okay, it is making the process of managing easier. Okay, so that is the advantage of decentralization. Other than that, again, with the decentralization, there will be more flexibility. Now, because of the autonomy, MCE can change the syllabus. Okay, MCE can introduce new courses. MCE can introduce new labs. So because it has freedom, it has flexibility. Okay, by considering the requirement of industry, because of the autonomy, because of decentralization, MCE can make decision on its own. Okay, so that is the advantage of decentralization. Okay, in a centralized setup, the decision making authority is concentrated in a few hands at the top, and in a decentralized setup, it is delegated to the levels where the work is to be performed. Now you know in autonomous colleges, okay, exams will be conducted at college level. Okay, that is a decentralized setup. In case of colleges which directly comes under VTU, okay, so they cannot set paper at the college level. They have to depend on university. That is the centralized setup. Okay, so question paper or examination will be conducted at university level. That is centralized setup. Examination conducted at college level is the decentralized setup. Okay, in management also this is possible. By delegating authority, you can achieve decentralization. Advantages of decentralization. Decentralization reduces problem of communication and red tape. Again, okay, if you are in VTU, yeah, again, you know, communication with VTU is difficult for a student compared to communication with the college. Okay, so if there is any problem, you can directly come to college and you can contact concern. Okay, if you have to contact university, it is very difficult. Okay, so decentralization reduces problem of communication and red tape. Red tape means you know the bureaucrats. Okay, you know how office staff will behave in any system. Okay, they don't respond properly. Okay, that is the that we call it as red tape. Okay, they will show some rules and always they are not ready to work. Okay, but with the help of decentralization, people are made more answerable. Okay, so more they have to answer if they don't do work. That is possible in case of decentralization. It permits quicker and better decision making. Again, because of autonomy, we can change the syllabus, we can introduce new courses. Okay, that is because of decentralization. Decentralization recognizes and actually capitalizes on the importance of the human element. Under decentralization, employees are able to exercise more autonomy. So that means every individual, okay, so he is involved in decision making process. Okay, then he will show more interest towards work. Okay, so that you can involve subordinates in decision making process with the help of decentralization by delegating authority or by giving powers. Okay, by giving responsibilities. Okay, you can achieve that. It leads to a competitive climate within the organization. So that means if there are 9 departments, then there will be competition among 9 departments regarding changing syllabus, regarding improving the quality of education in the particular department. Okay, that is possible with the help of decentralization. Decentralization ensures the development of employees because there is flexibility in the organization structure. Okay, so new technologies can be implemented. In case of engineering colleges, new courses can be implemented by them. Decentralization facilitates diversification of products, activities, and markets. Again, if you consider a multinational company, okay, which is operating at various locations throughout the world, okay, if there is decentralization, that means if the decision making power is delegated to managers at different plants, okay, by considering the local demand of the products, okay, they can vary the product. Okay, so depending on the local requirement, local demand, Okay, they can make decision regarding which product should be produced in what quantity. Okay, so these are the benefits of decentralization. Again, there are advantages of centralization also. Okay, so if there is centralization, coordination of activities of subordinates is better achieved. That means there is uniformity if there is centralization, as Raif said. Okay, so same question paper for 200 colleges in VTU. Okay, that is possible because of centralization. All power will be with the VTU. So coordination of activities of subordinates is better achieved. There is no duplication of efforts or resources. Again, 50 autonomous colleges will have 50 question papers for the same course, whereas for 200 colleges of VTU, only one question paper. So again, if you consider the process of setting question paper for a course, here for 50 colleges, 50 separate papers. In VTU, for 200 colleges, there will be one question paper. So that is an example. Okay, there is no duplication of efforts or resources in case of centralization. Decisions take into account the interest of the entire organization. Okay, strong central leadership develops, which may be required in crisis. Okay, so now we know if you consider India, okay, so or even in USA, okay, it is called as United States of America. The reason is that is a federal system, that is a decentralized system. Okay, that means even states have more power compared to Indian states. Okay, so the states of USA have more power, and the federal system in USA is more robust compared to the federal system of India. Okay, again, you know, if the central government is strong and the leader at the center is strong, then it has some advantages and it has some disadvantages. Okay, one of the advantages, if the leader is strong, okay, so he may solve the problems more effectively. Okay, that is one consideration. It may not happen always. Okay, and because of GST implementation, okay, that is also a GST also results in discussion regarding federal system in India and centralization and decentralization. Okay, GST results in centralization. The reason is earlier state governments were collecting taxes, okay, like value added tax, and there are different taxes which were collected by state government. Now because of implementation of GST, tax will be collected by the central government. Okay, then that should be reallocated to states. Okay, central is collecting, then after collecting it has to give back to states. At times what happen is central is collecting taxes, it is not giving back. Because of that, state governments are in discussion with the central government, or in there is a conflict going on between state governments and central government because of centralization due to GST. Okay, that later I will share a link. There's a video related to the central, how GST results in centralization and why state governments are in conflict with the center. That I will share later. Okay, so this completes today's class. I will continue in next class on Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday I have a class at 4:30. Okay, instead of that, if I engage that class at 10:45, do you have any problem? Wednesday I will engage at 10:45. Huh? Wednesday.
ಸರ್ ಡಿಎಂಇ ತಗೋತಾರೆ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ.
ಯಾವುದು ಡಿಎಂಇನಾ?
ಹ್ಞೂ ಸರ್, ಅವರು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ M3 M4 ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ತಗೊಂತಾರೆ. 10:45 ತಗೋತಾರೆ.